My name is Athena Anderson, and I'm 18 years old. On my birthday, the man who raised me threw a $50 bill at my face and told me to get out, because he was done paying for another man's mistake. He had waited 18 years for this moment. 18 years of cold silence, missed recitals, and whispered insults when he thought I couldn't hear. He believed that $50 and a slammed door would be the end of my story. He had no idea it was just the beginning. Before we dive in, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this story. Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from and what time it is there. I love hearing from all of you. Now, let me take you back to where it all started. To understand what happened on my 18th birthday, I need to take you back 10 years, to the first time I realized I wasn't like the other kids in my family. I was 8 years old. It was the spring recital at Highlands Ranch Elementary, and I had practiced Fur Elise for 3 months straight. My fingers knew every note by heart. My mother, Linda, sat in the front row with her phone out, recording every second. She wore her favorite blue dress, the one she saved for special occasions. The seat next to her was empty. Richard had a last-minute meeting. That's what Mom told me when I asked where he was. But even at 8, I noticed that he never had last-minute meetings when Tyler had his soccer games. Tyler was 4 then, and Richard attended every single match, even the ones where my little brother just picked dandelions on the field instead of playing. After the recital, I found Mom in the hallway. Her eyes were red, but she smiled and told me I was wonderful. "Why doesn't Daddy ever come to my things?" I asked. She didn't answer. She just hugged me tighter than usual. That night, I couldn't sleep. I crept downstairs for water and heard voices in the kitchen. Richard and Mom. They didn't know I was listening. "I told you I can't pretend forever," Richard said. "Every time I look at her, I see the mistake you made." "She's a child, Richard. She's innocent in all of this." "She's not my child. She never was. And the day she turns 18, she's out of this house." I didn't understand what mistake meant back then. I didn't know why Richard looked at me differently than he looked at Tyler. But I understood one thing clearly. Whatever was wrong with me, it made my mother cry. I went back to bed without the water, and I started counting. Not the days until I could leave, but the days until I could understand why I was never enough. The difference between Tyler and me wasn't just emotional, it was financial, and by the time I was 16, I had the receipts to prove it. It was September of my junior year. SAT registration was due, and I needed $200, $150 for the test, $50 for prep books. I approached Richard in his home office, where he sat reviewing spreadsheets for Mercer Holloway Properties, the commercial real estate firm where he served as vice president of business development. "I need money for the SAT, I said, straight to the point. I'd learned years ago that Richard preferred efficiency over pleasantries. He didn't look up. "Get a job. The registration deadline is in 2 weeks. I don't have time to—" "Tyler needs new soccer cleats. The good ones cost $350. I can't be throwing money at everyone. $350 for soccer cleats for a 14-year-old who would outgrow them in 6 months. But $200 for my college entrance exam was throwing money. I got a job at a coffee shop called Brood Awakening 3 blocks from school. Minimum wage, 15 hours a week. It took me 3 months to save enough for the SAT and books, while also covering my own phone bill, because Richard had removed me from the family plan when I turned 15. Tyler, meanwhile, got a new iPhone every September, the latest model. No questions asked. When my SAT scores came back, 1480 out of 1696th percentile, I left the report on the kitchen counter where everyone could see it. No one mentioned it. Not Richard. Not Karen, his second wife. Not even Tyler, who probably didn't understand what the numbers meant. Mom would have been proud. She'd been gone 4 years by then, taken by breast cancer when I was 12. But I like to think she was watching somehow. I didn't ask Richard for money again after that. If I had to build my future alone, I would. But I also kept a record of every disparity, every slight, every dollar that went to Tyler instead of me. I didn't know it then, but that record would become important later. My mother died on a Tuesday in November. She was 41 years old. I was 12. The cancer had been aggressive, 14 months from diagnosis to the end. I spent most of that year sitting beside her hospital bed, reading aloud from her favorite books, while the machines beeped their steady rhythm. 3 days before she passed, Mom asked the nurses to give us privacy. She was weak, her voice barely a whisper, but her grip on my hand was surprisingly strong. "There's a letter," she said. "In my jewelry box, the one with the roses on the lid." I knew the box. It sat on her dresser, filled with pieces she never wore anymore. A pearl necklace from her mother, a silver bracelet from her college graduation. "Don't open it until you're 16, she continued. "Promise me, Athena. 16. "Why 16? "Because you'll be old enough to understand, and strong enough to handle it." I promised. I didn't know what I was promising to, but I would have agreed to anything she asked. She died 3 days later, with me holding her hand and Richard standing in the doorway, checking his watch. 11 months after the funeral, Richard married Karen. She was a real estate agent he'd met at a company event, blonde, polished, eager to play the role of Mrs. Mercer. Karen's first act as stepmother was to reorganize the house. Mom's clothes went to donation. Her books went to storage. Her jewelry box nearly went to the attic, but I grabbed it first. "That's mine," I said, clutching it to my chest. Karen looked at Richard. He shrugged. "Let her keep it, it's just junk." I hid the box in the back of my closet, behind winter coats I'd outgrown. And I waited. 4 years. That's how long I kept my promise. I had no idea that one letter would change everything. On my 16th birthday, I opened the jewelry box. It was a Saturday morning. Karen had taken Tyler to a travel soccer tournament in Colorado Springs. Richard was at the golf course, Cherry Hills Country Club, where he spent most weekends pretending to be more important than he was. I sat on my bed with the rose-covered box in my lap. My hands trembled as I lifted the lid and found the envelope tucked beneath a strand of pearls. My name was written on the front, in Mom's handwriting. Athena. The letter was 3 pages long, written on her personal stationery, dated August 15th, 2019, 2 months before her diagnosis. I read it twice before the words sank in. "My darling Athena, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and you're old enough to know the truth. Richard is not your biological father. Before I married him, I had a brief relationship with a man named Marcus Holloway. It ended when he got engaged to someone else. I didn't know I was pregnant until after he was gone. Richard was pursuing me at the time, and I made a decision I've regretted ever since. I married him and let him believe you were his. He found out when you were 3. He discovered a DNA test I'd hidden. He's known the truth for 15 years, Athena. He chose to stay silent because he didn't want the embarrassment of admitting his wife had been with another man. I'm sorry I never told you. I was afraid of losing you, but you deserve to know who you are. Marcus never knew about you. That wasn't fair to him either." This letter has been notarized and filed with my attorney, Eleanor Vance, at Vance and Associates. She has instructions to help you if you ever need it. You are not a mistake, Athena. You are the best thing I ever did. And your real father deserves to know you exist. All my love, forever. Mom. I sat there for an hour, reading the letter over and over. Everything finally made sense, and nothing would ever be the same. That night, I typed Marcus Holloway Denver into Google. The results were overwhelming. Marcus Holloway, CEO and co-founder of Holloway Capital Partners, a private equity fund specializing in commercial real estate and renewable energy. Assets under management, $2.3 billion. I stared at the number, billion, with a B. There were photos. A tall man with silver hair and sharp blue eyes, the same shade as mine. He wore tailored suits in most pictures, standing at podiums or shaking hands with governors and mayors. But the detail that made my heart stop was buried in a Denver Business Journal article from March 2022. Holloway Capital continues to dominate Colorado's commercial real estate market, outbidding smaller competitors in at least 7 major deals over the past decade. The article named one of those smaller competitors, Mercer Holloway Properties. I almost laughed. The company Richard worked for had Holloway in its name because Marcus had been a co-founder 20 years ago. They'd split over a business dispute, and Marcus had gone on to build an empire while Richard remained a vice president at the firm they'd started together. Richard hated Marcus Holloway. I'd heard him complain about that arrogant bastard at dinner parties, blaming Marcus for every deal that fell through, every contract lost to a higher bidder. And now I knew why Richard looked at me with such contempt. Every time he saw my face, he saw the man who had beaten him at everything: business, success, and apparently my mother's heart. The question now was simple. Did Marcus Holloway want to know I existed? I waited 6 months before reaching out. I needed to be strategic. In September of my senior year, I wrote a letter to Marcus Holloway. Not an email, a physical letter, sent to Holloway Capital Partners headquarters in downtown Denver. I included a copy of Mom's letter and a simple request: an independent DNA test to confirm the truth. 2 weeks passed. Then 3. I checked the mailbox every day, my stomach churning with a mixture of hope and dread. On day 18, a response arrived, not from Marcus directly, but from his attorney. The letter was brief and professional. Mr. Holloway was willing to undergo DNA testing at Gene Trust Labs, a certified facility. An appointment had been scheduled for October 15th. The test took 5 minutes. A cheek swab, some paperwork, a promise that results would arrive within 2 weeks. On November 8th, I received the report. Case number GT 2023-1108 AM. Probability of paternity, 99.97%. 3 days later, my phone rang. An unknown number with a Denver area code. Athena? The voice was deep, measured. This is Marcus Holloway. I just received the results. I couldn't speak. My throat had closed completely. I didn't know about you, he continued. Your mother never told me. But now that I know, I'm not going anywhere. I promise you that. I believed him. March 15th arrived cold and gray, the sky heavy with clouds that couldn't decide whether to rain or snow. I woke at 6:47 a.m., 13 minutes before my alarm. For a moment, I lay still, staring at the ceiling of the room I'd slept in for 18 years. The walls were bare now. I'd taken down the posters and photos weeks ago, packing them into boxes that sat in the corner, ready to go. Today was the day. I could feel it in my bones. I showered, dressed in jeans and a navy sweater, and went downstairs. The kitchen smelled like coffee and toast. Karen stood at the counter, scrolling through her phone. Tyler sat at the table, shoveling cereal into his mouth while watching something on his iPad. Neither of them looked up when I entered. No happy birthday, no card, no cake. I hadn't expected any of those things, but the absence still stung. Richard sat at the head of the table, reading the Denver Post. He didn't acknowledge me either, but I noticed his jaw was tight, his shoulders rigid. He'd been waiting for this day for years. I poured myself a glass of orange juice and glanced out the window. There it was. A black Mercedes S-Class, parked at the corner of our street, just visible through the bare branches of the oak tree in our front yard. Marcus was already here, waiting. The envelope in my jacket pocket felt heavier than paper should. Inside were the DNA results, a copy of Mom's letter, and a photograph of Marcus and me taken 2 months ago at a coffee shop downtown. The first time we'd met in person. Oh, I took a slow breath. Whatever happened next, I was ready. Richard folded his newspaper and looked at me for the first time that morning. We need to talk, he said. Richard reached into his wallet and pulled out a $50 bill. He didn't hand it to me. He threw it. The bill landed on the table in front of me, next to my untouched orange juice. You're 18 now, he said. I'm done. I stared at the 50. Ulysses Grant's face looked back at me, indifferent. Excuse me? You heard me. Richard's voice was flat, rehearsed. He'd been practicing this speech. I've fulfilled my legal obligation. You're an adult. Get out. Karen set down her phone. Richard, maybe we should stay out of this. He didn't even look at her. His eyes were locked on mine, filled with 18 years of resentment. I've known since you were 3 years old. You're not my daughter. You never were. I only kept you around because your mother begged me and because I didn't want people asking questions. Tyler finally looked up from his iPad. His mouth hung open, cereal forgotten. But Linda's gone now, Richard continued, and I'm not paying for another man's mistake anymore. Another man's mistake, the same words I'd overheard when I was 8. I picked up the $50 bill, slowly, deliberately. I didn't want Richard to see my hands shake. You think this is an insult, I said. It's more than you deserve. I almost smiled. Almost. I know, I said. I've known for 2 years. Richard's expression flickered. Confusion. Then suspicion. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out the envelope. I set it on the table, directly in front of him. Open it. He hesitated, then tore the envelope open. I watched his face as he read the DNA results, as he recognized Mom's handwriting on the letter, as the color drained from his cheeks. And my real father, I said, is waiting outside. Richard's head snapped toward the window. The black Mercedes. The driver's door opening. A tall man with silver hair stepping onto the sidewalk. Marcus Holloway. Richard's face went gray. No, he whispered. No, no, no. I watched Richard watch Marcus. The man who had tormented me for 18 years, who had made me feel worthless, unwanted, invisible, was frozen in place. His hand gripped the DNA report so tightly that the paper crumpled at the edges. Marcus walked up our driveway with the unhurried confidence of someone who had nothing to prove. He wore a charcoal overcoat and leather gloves, his silver hair perfectly styled despite the March wind. That's impossible, Richard breathed. You and him? Linda and… He couldn't finish the sentence. Before you, I said. Before she ever knew you existed. Karen had gone pale. She looked between Richard and the window, trying to piece together what was happening. Tyler had abandoned his iPad entirely, his teenage apathy replaced by wide-eyed shock. You planned this, Richard's voice cracked. You've been planning this. For 2 years, I confirmed. Ever since I found Mom's letter. Ever since I learned that you knew the truth and punished me for it anyway. The doorbell rang. Nobody moved. It rang again. I'll get it, I said. I walked to the front door, my heart pounding but my steps steady. I could feel Richard's eyes burning into my back. I could hear Karen whispering something frantic, probably trying to figure out how this would affect her social standing. I opened the door. Marcus Holloway stood on the porch, his blue eyes, my eyes, meeting mine. Ready? He asked. Ready? I turned back to look at Richard one last time. He was still standing at the kitchen table, the $50 bill forgotten on the floor. Goodbye, Richard. Marcus didn't wait for an invitation. He stepped past me into the foyer, his presence filling the space in a way Richard never could. Richard. Marcus's voice was calm, almost pleasant. It's been a while. Richard found his footing. Get out of my house. I'm here to collect my daughter, the one you just threw out with a $50 bill. Marcus glanced at the crumpled money on the floor. Generous of you. She's not your… Richard stopped himself. The DNA results were still in his hand, the evidence undeniable. 99.97%, Marcus said. Gene Trust Labs doesn't make mistakes. Neither did Linda, apparently, when she chose not to tell me. Karen finally spoke. Richard, who is this man? Marcus Holloway. Richard spat the name like poison. My former business partner, the one who's been sabotaging my deals for years. Sabotaging? Marcus raised an eyebrow. I believe the word you're looking for is outperforming. There's a difference. I stood by the door watching the confrontation unfold. Part of me wanted to intervene, but a larger part understood that this moment wasn't about me. It was about Richard facing the consequences of his cruelty. You think you've won something? Richard stepped closer to Marcus, his fists clenched. Taking her doesn't change anything. She's still Linda's mistake. She's still... Careful! Marcus's voice dropped, losing its pleasant veneer. That's my daughter you're talking about, and I've spent the last 6 months learning exactly how you've treated her. The words hung in the air. I know about the SAT money you refused, Marcus continued. The phone plan you cut, the trust fund you've been draining, all of it. Richard's face went from gray to white. How? It doesn't matter how. What matters is that everything you've done to Athena will have consequences, starting today. Marcus reached into his coat and produced a manila folder. He set it on the kitchen counter, directly in front of Karen, who flinched as if it might bite her. Linda left Athena a trust fund, Marcus said. $180,000 to be managed by her legal guardian until she turned 18. He flipped open the folder. That guardian was you, Richard. Richard's jaw tightened. I had every right to access those funds. Raising a child is expensive. Is it? Marcus pulled out a spreadsheet. Bank statements, highlighted and annotated. According to these records, you withdrew $47,000 over the past 5 years. For child-rearing expenses. He looked at me. Athena, did Richard pay for your SAT registration? No. Your phone bill? No. School supplies? Clothes? Extracurriculars? I paid for everything myself, with money I earned working at a coffee shop. Marcus turned back to Richard. So where did $47,000 go? Silence. Karen's eyes darted to the spreadsheet. I saw her expression shift. Not guilt exactly, but recognition. She knew where that money had gone. Tyler's soccer camps, Tyler's private coaching, Tyler's endless parade of new electronics. That's embezzlement, Marcus said quietly. Under Colorado law, a trustee who misappropriates funds can be held personally liable, plus interest, plus legal fees. You can't prove. I already have. Marcus tapped the folder. My attorney, Eleanor Vance, has been reviewing these records for months. The same Eleanor Vance your wife Linda hired to protect Athena's interests before she died. Richard looked like he might be sick. We'll discuss this more, Marcus said, after the gala. One more thing. Marcus pulled a second document from the folder, a printed email, complete with headers and timestamps. Richard's face went from white to green. September 12, 2018, Marcus read aloud. From Richard Mercer Holloway, com to your personal attorney. Subject, inheritance issue, confidential. He held up the paper so everyone could see. I need to know my options for minimizing inheritance obligations to a child who is not biologically mine. Specifically, can I exclude her from my will without disclosing the reason? And what happens to her mother's trust fund if the child is removed from the household before age 18? Karen gasped. Even Tyler looked disturbed. Where did you get that? Richard's voice was barely a whisper. Your company's IT department isn't as loyal as you think, Marcus said, especially when they're offered better opportunities elsewhere. I hadn't known about this email. Marcus had mentioned he was gathering evidence, but I didn't realize how deep he'd dug. You've been planning to cut me out since I was 12, I said. The words came out steady, factual. Before Mom even died. Richard couldn't meet my eyes. The gala is in 1 week, Marcus said, tucking the documents back into the folder. I suggest you spend that time consulting with your lawyer, because after Saturday night, everyone in Denver's business community will know exactly what kind of man you are. He extended his hand to me. Athena, let's go. I took one last look at the kitchen, at Karen's frozen expression, Tyler's confusion, Richard's crumbling composure. Then I walked out the door with my father, my real father. The story's just getting started, everyone. Richard threw me out thinking he'd won, but he had no idea who my real father was. And the best part? It's still coming. In 1 week, everyone Richard spent his whole life trying to impress will learn the truth about him. If you want to see what happens at that gala, hit like and subscribe right now. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. I should have known Richard wouldn't go quietly. The week after my birthday, I moved into a guest apartment in Marcus's building downtown, a sleek high-rise with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. It was temporary, just until I started college in the fall, but it felt like a different planet compared to the house in Highlands Ranch. For the first few days, I let myself breathe. I unpacked my boxes, I explored the neighborhood. I had dinner with Marcus twice, awkward but genuine conversations where we tried to fill 18 years of silence. Then the attacks began. On Tuesday, March 18th, I received a call from my high school principal. Richard had contacted her claiming I was emotionally unstable and fabricating stories about my family. He suggested I might need a psychological evaluation before graduation. The principal, thankfully, knew me well enough to be skeptical, but the call shook me. On Thursday, an email arrived from the University of Colorado Boulder's admissions office. Subject line, clarification needed. Dear Ms. Anderson, we have received information suggesting inconsistencies in your financial aid application. Specifically, concerns have been raised about your family situation and guardianship status. Please contact our office to schedule a meeting before your enrollment can be finalized. Deadline, April 1st. I stared at the email for 10 minutes before calling Marcus. He's trying to destroy my future, I said. He can't hurt me directly anymore, so he's going after everything I've built. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Eleanor Vance will handle the university, and the principal. Richard is digging his own grave. He just doesn't know it yet. What do you mean? The gala is Saturday. He'll be there to accept his award, and so will we. I didn't understand yet, but I would. Richard wasn't just going to lose. He was going to lose in front of everyone who mattered to him. The 15th annual Denver Chamber of Commerce Charity Gala was the social event of the spring season. I learned this from Marcus, who explained it over dinner on Friday night, the eve of the event. 400 guests, he said, cutting into his steak. Business leaders, investors, city officials, everyone who matters in Denver's commercial real estate world will be there. And Richard? He's being honored as Developer of the Year. Marcus's smile was thin. An award he's been campaigning for since 2019. It's the validation he's always wanted, proof that he belongs among the city's elite. I pushed my salad around my plate. So we're going to take that away from him? No. Marcus set down his knife and fork. We're going to let him take it away from himself. All we have to do is show up. The gala was being held at the Four Seasons Hotel downtown, in the grand ballroom on the second floor. Black tie, champagne, a silent auction benefiting children's literacy programs. And Marcus Holloway was the primary sponsor, having donated $500,000 to the cause. As lead sponsor, I give the opening remarks, Marcus explained. I have about 10 minutes on stage before they start handing out awards. What are you going to say? He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. The truth? That's all. Just the truth. I thought about Richard, probably at home right now rehearsing his acceptance speech, practicing his humble smile in the mirror, imagining the applause, the handshakes, the photos that would appear in the Denver Business Journal. He had no idea what was coming. What should I wear? I asked. Marcus smiled, a real smile this time, warm and paternal. I had something delivered to your apartment this afternoon. Consider it a birthday gift. Saturday, March 22nd, 7:30 p.m. The navy blue gown fit perfectly, floor-length silk with a modest neckline, elegant without being flashy. Marcus had chosen well. We arrived at the Four Seasons together, his hand steady on my elbow as we walked through the gilded lobby. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light across marble floors. Well-dressed couples mingled near the bar, their laughter echoing off high ceilings. I'd never been to anything like this. My world had been coffee shops and high school hallways, not ballrooms and champagne flutes. but I kept my chin up and my shoulders back, channeling every ounce of composure I developed over 18 years of surviving Richard's household. We entered the ballroom at 7:42 p.m. I know the exact time because I checked my phone, wanting to remember every detail. The room was stunning. Round tables draped in white linen, centerpieces of white roses and eucalyptus, a stage at the far end with a podium and a massive screen displaying the Chamber of Commerce logo. And there, near the bar, stood Richard. He wore a tuxedo that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. Karen was beside him in a red dress, laughing at something one of the investors said. Richard held a champagne flute, gesturing expansively as he told some story about a recent deal. Then he saw me. The champagne flute froze halfway to his lips. His eyes moved from my face to Marcus, then back to me. I watched the color drain from his cheeks in real time. He excused himself from his group and strode toward us, his expression murderous. "What the hell are you doing here?" "I was invited," I said calmly. "My father is the lead sponsor." Several heads turned at the word father. Phones appeared in hands. Someone whispered. Richard's jaw clenched so tight I thought his teeth might crack. Richard had never been good at controlling his temper, especially after a few drinks. "Your father?" He laughed, a harsh, ugly sound. "Marcus Holloway is not your father. He's a con artist who's using you to get at me." The people around us had stopped pretending not to listen. A circle was forming, drawn by the promise of drama. "Richard." Karen appeared at his elbow, her face tight with alarm. "Not here, please." He shook her off. "No. Everyone needs to know what's happening here." He pointed at me, his finger trembling with rage. "This girl is not my daughter. She's the product of my late wife's affair, a bastard I was forced to raise for 18 years. Gasps, murmurs. I saw at least 3 phones rise, cameras pointed in our direction. "I gave her a roof over her head," Richard continued, his voice rising. "I fed her. I clothed her. And this is how she repays me? By showing up here with him?" I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Richard was doing all the work himself. "She's a liar and a manipulator, just like her mother was. Linda fooled me for years, and now her daughter is trying to do the same thing. Don't believe a word she says." The ballroom had gone quiet. Even the string quartet had stopped playing. I felt Marcus's hand on my shoulder. Steady, reassuring. "Are you finished?" I asked Richard. His face was red now, veins visible at his temples. "I'm just getting started. You think you can ruin me? You're nothing. You've always been nothing." I looked at him, really looked at him, for what might be the last time. "I don't need to ruin you, Richard. You're doing that yourself." From the corner of my eye, I saw Marcus walking toward the stage. It was time. The MC, a silver-haired woman in a black sequined dress, tapped the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please. It's time to begin our program. Please welcome our lead sponsor and keynote speaker, Mr. Marcus Holloway." Applause filled the ballroom. Marcus climbed the steps to the stage with the easy confidence of a man who had addressed thousands of audiences. He shook the MC's hand, adjusted the microphone, and smiled out at the crowd. "Thank you all for being here tonight," he began. "The Denver Chamber of Commerce Charity Gala has raised over $12 million for children's literacy programs over the past 15 years. That's something we should all be proud of." More applause. Richard had retreated to his table, his face still flushed, Karen whispering urgently in his ear. "Tonight, I want to talk about something personal," Marcus continued. "About family, about the choices we make and the consequences that follow." A ripple of curiosity passed through the crowd. This wasn't the typical sponsor speech. 20 years ago, I made a choice that I've regretted ever since. I walked away from someone I cared about because I thought I had better options. I didn't know then that she was carrying my child. The whispers intensified. I saw heads turning, searching for context. 6 months ago, I received a letter from a remarkable young woman. She had spent 2 years researching her own history, gathering evidence, building a case. She did this not for revenge, but for truth. for the right to know where she came from. Marcus looked directly at me. That young woman is here tonight, and I'd like to introduce her to you, not as a secret, not as a scandal, but as my daughter. He extended his hand toward me. Athena, would you join me on stage? The walk to the stage felt like it took an hour. 400 faces watched me cross the ballroom floor. 400 pairs of eyes tracked my every step. I heard whispers. Holloway's daughter? Who is she? Did he say 18 years? I climbed the stairs and took Marcus's hand. He pulled me gently to his side, facing the crowd. This is Athena Anderson, he said into the microphone. Or, as I hope she'll allow me to call her someday, Athena Holloway, my daughter. The applause started slowly, then built. Not everyone clapped. Some were too stunned, others too busy processing, but enough did that the sound filled the room. Athena spent 18 years in a household that didn't want her, Marcus continued. She was told she was a mistake. She was denied basic support while her stepbrother received everything. She paid for her own SAT registration by working at a coffee shop because the man who was supposed to be her guardian refused to give her $200. I saw Richard's table. His face was ashen. Karen had her hand over her mouth. The other guests at their table were leaning away, as if Richard's disgrace might be contagious. Despite all of that, Marcus said, Athena graduated with a 3.9 GPA. She scored in the 96th percentile on her SATs. She earned a partial scholarship to the University of Colorado Boulder. She did all of this alone, without help, without support, without anyone telling her she was worthy. He turned to me, his eyes glistening. I missed 18 years of your life, Athena. I can't get those back, but I can promise you this. From today forward, you will never be alone again. I couldn't speak. My throat was too tight, so I just nodded and squeezed his hand. The applause was deafening. Marcus gestured toward the side of the stage, where a woman in a tailored gray suit stood waiting. For those who might question the validity of what I've shared, allow me to introduce Eleanor Vance, senior partner at Vance & Associates. Ms. Vance has been the custodian of the documentation that proves Athena's parentage. Eleanor stepped forward, her presence commanding immediate respect. She was in her late 40s, with sharp features and the composed demeanor of someone who had spent decades in courtrooms. "Good evening," she said into the microphone. "I have in my possession the following documents. First, a notarized letter written by Linda Anderson Mercer on August 15, 2019, attesting to Marcus Holloway's biological paternity of her daughter Athena. Second, DNA test results from Gene Trust Labs, dated November 8, 2023, confirming a 99.97% probability of paternal match between Mr. Holloway and Ms. Anderson." She held up a folder, the same folder Marcus had shown Richard a week ago. "These documents have been authenticated and are available for legal review. There is no ambiguity here. Athena Anderson is Marcus Holloway's biological daughter." The room buzzed with reaction. I saw a reporter from the Denver Business Journal scribbling furiously in a notebook. Phones were out everywhere, recording, texting, posting. Richard's table had become an island of silence. The other guests had physically shifted their chairs away from him. No one wanted to be associated with what was unfolding. "One more thing," Eleanor added. "I am also in possession of financial records indicating that Richard Mercer, as trustee of Athena's inheritance from her late mother, withdrew $47,000 from her trust fund over a 5-year period. Legal proceedings to recover those funds will begin Monday morning." Richard stood abruptly, knocking over his champagne glass. He didn't say a word, he just walked out. He didn't get far. Richard made it about 10 steps toward the exit before someone called out, "Running away, Mercer?" He stopped, turned. His face was a mask of barely controlled fury. "This is a setup," he shouted, his voice cracking. "Marcus has been trying to destroy me for 20 years. He's using that girl to finish the job." The crowd shifted uncomfortably. A few people looked at Marcus, then at me, then back at Richard. "The DNA test is fake," Richard continued, striding back toward the stage. "The documents are forged. This is all a lie designed to humiliate me." Marcus didn't flinch. Gene Trust Labs is one of the most respected facilities in the country. Their results have been used in thousands of legal proceedings. Are you suggesting they're part of my conspiracy? I'm suggesting you paid them off. And the letter from Linda? Your own wife? Is that forged too? Richard's mouth opened, then closed. He had no answer. "You called my daughter a bastard in front of 50 witnesses," Marcus said, his voice dropping to something cold and dangerous. "You admitted, publicly, that you knew she wasn't your biological child, and that you resented her for it. You did that before I said a single word." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. "Everything that's happening to you tonight, Richard, you brought on yourself." Someone in the crowd shouted, "What about the trust fund money?" Richard's face went pale. That's a private matter." $47,000, another voice called out. "From a child's inheritance, that's theft." The crowd was turning. I could feel it, the collective judgment shifting, the social tide pulling away from Richard and toward us. Karen appeared at his side, tugging his arm. "Richard, we need to leave, now." This time he didn't argue. They fled through the side door, leaving their table empty. The Monday after the gala, Eleanor Vance filed suit in Denver County Court, case number 2024 CV0892, plaintiff Athena Anderson, defendant Richard Mercer. The complaint was straightforward: breach of fiduciary duty, misappropriation of trust funds, and failure to properly manage assets held for a minor beneficiary. We were seeking full recovery of the $47,000 Richard had withdrawn, plus interest at 8% annually, plus attorney's fees. "The evidence is overwhelming," Eleanor told me during our meeting that afternoon. Her office was on the 17th floor of a downtown high-rise, with views of the mountains to the west. Bank statements, withdrawal records, signed authorizations, all in Richard's name. "And we have your testimony about what you actually received. Nothing. What happens now?" "Richard has 30 days to respond. He can settle or he can fight. But fighting means discovery, and discovery means we get access to all his financial records." She smiled slightly. "I don't think he wants that." I thought about the email Marcus had shown me, the one where Richard asked his lawyer about cutting me out of the will. If that email existed, what else was hidden in his files? "There's something else," Eleanor continued. "The university situation has been resolved. I spoke with the admissions office this morning. They've reviewed the concerns Richard raised and found them baseless. Your enrollment is confirmed." Relief washed over me. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Thank yourself. You built an impeccable record despite everything working against you." Richard's accusations only made him look petty and vindictive. I left Eleanor's office feeling lighter than I had in years. The legal process would take time, months probably, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. Richard had spent 18 years making me feel powerless. That was over now. Richard's lawyer called Eleanor on April 10th, 3 weeks after the lawsuit was filed. "They want to settle," Eleanor told me over the phone. "Full repayment of the $47,000 plus $8,500 in accrued interest, plus our legal fees, $12,000. They're also agreeing to transfer the remaining balance of your mother's trust fund immediately." I did the math in my head. That's over $200,000 total. $200,500 to be precise, and they're not contesting anything. No discovery, no depositions, no trial. Why? Because Richard can't afford the scrutiny. The gala was a disaster for him, professionally and personally. His partners at Mercer Holloway have been distancing themselves ever since. A prolonged legal battle would only make things worse. The settlement was signed on April 15th, exactly 1 month after my 18th birthday. I didn't attend the signing. I didn't need to see Richard's face as he wrote the check. I didn't need his apology, which, according to Eleanor, he didn't offer anyway. What I needed was closure, and that's what I got. The money was deposited into my account 3 days later. I stared at the balance on my phone screen for a long time. $200,500. It wasn't about the money, really. It was about being seen, being acknowledged, being told, finally, that what happened to me was wrong. Richard had spent 18 years treating me like I was worthless. Now he had paid, literally, for that mistake. Marcus took me to dinner the night the settlement money arrived. A quiet Italian restaurant in Lodo, the kind of place with white tablecloths and candles flickering in wine bottles. "I want to pay for your college," he said, after we'd ordered. "All of it. Tuition, housing, books, everything." I set down my water glass. "I appreciate that, but no." He looked surprised. "Why not?" "Because I've spent 18 years proving I don't need anyone. I'm not going to start depending on someone now, even you. Athena, I'm your father. It's not dependence, it's family." "I know." I reached across the table and touched his hand. "And I'm grateful you're in my life. But I need to do this myself. The trust fund money, my scholarship, that's enough, more than enough." Marcus was quiet for a moment. I could see him wrestling with it, the instinct to provide battling against the recognition that I needed autonomy. "Your mother raised you well," he finally said. "She did." "Okay." He squeezed my hand. "But if you ever need anything at all, I'm here. No strings attached." "I know." We finished dinner talking about other things, his business, my plans for college, the apartment I was looking at near campus. Normal father-daughter conversation, or at least what I imagined normal father-daughter conversation might sound like. I didn't need Marcus's money to prove I was worthy. I had already proven that, every single day, for 18 years. I know a lot of you watching have been through something similar, being overlooked, undervalued, made to feel like you didn't matter by the people who were supposed to love you. If this story resonates with you, drop a comment below and share this video. Sometimes knowing you're not alone is the most important thing. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the ending. We're almost there. The fallout for Richard was swift and brutal. It started the night of the gala, when the Chamber of Commerce quietly withdrew his Developer of the Year nomination. No announcement, no explanation, just a brief email to attendees the next morning stating that, due to unforeseen circumstances, the award will not be presented this year. But that was just the beginning. On April 10th, the same day Richard's lawyer called to negotiate the settlement, Sterling Investment Group pulled out of a joint development project that had been in the works for 18 months. The deal was worth $12 million. According to the email Richard received, which somehow found its way to the Denver Business Journal, Sterling's CEO wrote, "We cannot associate our brand with individuals whose personal conduct raises questions about ethical judgment." The article ran on April 5th under the headline, "Family Scandal Casts Shadow Over Former Mercer Holloway Executive." Former. Because by then, Richard was already gone. The board of directors at Mercer Holloway Properties held an emergency meeting on May 1st. I wasn't there, obviously, but Marcus had sources inside the company. The vote was unanimous. Richard would resign effective immediately, with a modest severance package and a strict non-disclosure agreement. The official press release cited personal reasons and a desire to spend more time with family. No one believed it. Within 2 months, Richard Mercer had lost his award, his biggest deal, and his career. The house in Highlands Ranch went on the market in June. Karen apparently decided that staying in a neighborhood where everyone knew their business was unbearable. I didn't feel joy at Richard's downfall. I didn't feel vindication or triumph. What I felt was something quieter, something like peace. For 18 years, Richard had held power over me. He had controlled where I lived, what I ate, whether I felt welcome in my own home. He had made me feel small and worthless and invisible. Now the world could see who he really was. And I was finally free. Karen and Tyler were collateral damage in Richard's implosion. I didn't plan it that way, but I couldn't pretend I hadn't anticipated it. Karen disappeared from social media within a week of the gala. Her Instagram, where she'd posted carefully curated photos of her perfect family, went private, then vanished entirely. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she'd stopped attending her book club, her tennis lessons, her charity committee meetings. I didn't feel sorry for her. She had watched Richard treat me like garbage for 6 years and never said a word. Her silence made her complicit. Tyler was different. He was 14, old enough to understand what had happened, young enough that I couldn't hold him fully responsible. He'd grown up believing the narrative Richard fed him. That I was the outsider, the problem, the reason their family wasn't perfect. 3 months after the gala, I received a text message from an unknown number. Athena, it's Tyler. I got your number from Mom's phone. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted to say I'm sorry. I didn't know how bad things were for you. I should have paid attention. I should have said something. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to respond immediately to tell him it was okay, to rebuild some kind of relationship, but another part, the part that had spent 18 years being invisible, needed more time. I typed back, "Thank you for reaching out. I'm not ready to talk yet, but I appreciate you saying this." He replied, "I understand. Whenever you're ready, if you're ever ready." I saved his number but didn't add him to my contacts. Maybe someday, but not today. In August, I moved to Boulder. My apartment was small, a one-bedroom unit in a complex near campus, with a view of the Flatirons from the kitchen window. I furnished it with secondhand finds from thrift stores and Facebook Marketplace, a blue couch, a wooden desk, a bed frame that squeaked when I rolled over at night. It was perfect. The trust fund money sat in a savings account, earning modest interest. I used it for tuition and rent, careful to budget so it would last all 4 years. My scholarship covered the rest. I didn't touch a penny of Marcus's money. I didn't need to. Classes started the last week of August. I enrolled as a business major with a minor in communications. My professors were demanding, my course load heavy, but I thrived in ways I never had in high school. For the first time in my life, I was surrounded by people who didn't know my history, who judged me only by what I showed them. I got a part-time job at a small real estate firm downtown, not Marcus's company, not anything connected to Richard. Just a local agency that needed someone to answer phones and organize files. The pay was modest, but the experience was invaluable. Marcus visited once a month, always on a Sunday. We'd have brunch at a cafe on Pearl Street, talking about classes and work and the slow process of getting to know each other. He never pushed. He never tried to buy my affection. He just showed up, consistently, the way a father should. By October, I'd made friends. By November, I'd started dating a guy from my economics class, Jake, a Colorado native with an easy laugh and zero knowledge of my complicated past. I didn't tell him about Richard, or the gala, or the lawsuit. Not yet. That story belonged to my past, and I was building something new. For the first time in 18 years, I woke up every morning without dread. I woke up with hope. 6 months after the gala, Richard sent me an email. I almost deleted it without reading. His name in my inbox felt like a violation, a reminder of everything I'd worked to leave behind. But curiosity won out. "Athena, I know I have no right to contact you, but I've had time to think about what happened, and I realize I owe you an explanation. Maybe even an apology. I'd like to talk, if you're willing." Richard. No dear, no sincerely. No acknowledgement of the specific harm he'd caused. Just a vague gesture toward reconciliation, as if 18 years of cruelty could be erased with a single email. I didn't respond directly. Instead, I called Eleanor Vance. "I want to send him a message through your office," I said. "Something official, something final." She understood immediately. The letter was sent 3 days later, on Vance & Associates letterhead. "Mr. Mercer, Ms. Anderson has received your communication dated September 22nd. She has asked me to convey the following response. You had 18 years to treat me with basic human decency. You chose not to. You knew the truth about my parentage and used it as justification for neglect and emotional abuse. You stole from my inheritance. You attempted to sabotage my education and my future. I am not interested in your explanations or your apologies. I do not wish to have any further contact with you. This is not revenge. This is a boundary. Please do not attempt to reach me again. Athena Anderson. Richard never responded. I don't know if he was angry, hurt, or relieved. I didn't care. Some people deserve second chances. Richard wasn't one of them. Forgiveness doesn't mean letting someone back into your life to hurt you again. Sometimes forgiveness just means letting go and walking away. Building a relationship with Marcus was like learning a new language. We had the basics, shared DNA, shared features, a shared desire to connect, but the fluency would take years. Our monthly brunches became a ritual. He'd drive down from Denver on Sunday mornings, always arriving at exactly 10:00 a.m. We'd order the same things, avocado toast for me, eggs Benedict for him, and talk about everything and nothing. Some days were easy. We'd discuss his latest business deal or my upcoming exams, laughing at bad jokes and discovering shared interests. He loved jazz, so did I. He hated cilantro, so did I. Small things, but they added up. Other days were harder. There were silences that stretched too long, questions that had no good answers. How do you summarize 18 years of absence? How do you grieve a relationship that never existed? I'm not trying to replace the time we lost, Marcus told me once, stirring his coffee. I know that's impossible. I just want to be here for whatever comes next. That's enough, I said. And I meant it. On my 19th birthday, Marcus drove to Boulder with a small cake and a card. No extravagant gifts, no grand gestures, just the two of us in my tiny apartment, eating chocolate cake and watching the sunset paint the Flatirons pink and gold. Happy birthday, Athena, he said. Thanks, Dad. It was the first time I'd called him that. His eyes glistened, but he didn't make a big deal of it, neither did I. Some things don't need words. Looking back, I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I'd never found that letter, if I'd never reached out to Marcus, if I'd just accepted Richard's $50 and disappeared into the world, another forgotten child of a broken home. But I did find the letter, I did reach out, and everything changed. Here's what I learned from 18 years of being invisible. First, your worth is not determined by how others treat you. Richard saw me as a mistake, a burden, a reminder of his wife's betrayal. But his perception was never my reality. I was always more than what he saw. Second, boundaries are not selfish. They are essential. Cutting Richard out of my life wasn't revenge. It was self-preservation. I don't owe anyone access to my peace. Third, family is not just blood. It's the people who show up for you, who choose you, who love you without conditions. Marcus and I share DNA, but what makes him my father is the effort he puts in every single day. I'm a sophomore now, studying business and dreaming of starting my own real estate company someday. Not to compete with Richard or Marcus, just to prove to myself that I can build something from nothing. Because that's what I've always done. If you're watching this and you've ever felt overlooked, undervalued, or invisible, I see you. Your story isn't over. The people who dismissed you don't get to write your ending. You do. Thank you for staying until the end of my story. Now I want to ask you, if you were me, would you have responded to Richard's email? Comment yes if you would have given him a chance, or no if you agree with my decision. And please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next story. I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves.